so I will start. Thank you, Taraka Prabhu, with chanting Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopijana Vallabha, Jaya Girivardhari, Jaya Gopijana Vallabha, Jaya Girivardhari, Jaya Yasodhanandana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Yasodhanandana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Radha Ramudara, Radha Ramudara, Radha Ramudara, Shri Radhe, Jaya Radha Ramudara, Radha Ramudara, Radha Ramudara, Shri Radhe. Jai Shri Prabhupada, Jai Om Vishnupad Karim. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Okay. Welcome, dear devotees. Oh, Jasenia here. So happy to see Jasenia and everyone else. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namakesha Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Yasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nasta Prayas Vabatrashu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naisiki. So today we're reading from Canto 6, Chapter 18. Diti vowed to kill King Indra. I'm reading 3 verses today. Text 31 to 34. I will read the Sanskrit words for text 31, and then I just go ahead and reading the translation and purport of the other verses. Evam susrushita tata bhagavan kashyapa shriya prahasya parama prito ditim aha pinnanyacha evam susrushita tata bhagavan kashyapa shriya prahasya parama prito ditim aha pinnanyacha evam shushita tata bhagavan kashyapa shriya prahasya paramaprito ditim ahabhinanjaja. Evam das sushushita being served tata, O dear one, Bhagavan the powerful, Kashyapa 3 by the woman, Prahasya smiling, Parama Prita being very pleased, Titim Tiditi, Aha said, Abhinanya approving, Ja also. Translation. O my dear one, the most powerful sage Kashyapa, being extremely pleased by the merry behavior of his wife Diti, smiled and spoke to her as follows. Text 32, translation. Kashyapa Muni said, O beautiful woman, O irreproachable lady, since I am very much pleased by your behavior, you may ask me for any benediction you want. If a husband is pleased, what desires are difficult for his wife to attain, either in this world or in the next? Text 33, 34. Translation. A husband is a supreme demigod for a woman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vasudeva, the husband of the goddess of fortune, is situated in everyone's heart and is worshipped through the varied names and forms of the demigods by the fruitive workers. Similarly, a husband represents the Lord as the object of worship for a woman. Purport: the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:23, Yapi anya devata bhakta yajante shara janvita devi mam eva kunteya jajanti aviti puvakam. Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. The demigods are various assistants who act like the hands and legs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is not in direct touch with the Supreme Lord and cannot conceive of the exalted position of the Lord is sometimes advised to worship the demigods as various parts of the Lord. A woman who is usually very much attached to their husbands worship their husbands as representatives of Vasudeva. The woman benefit, just as Ajamil benefited by calling for Narayan, his son. Ajamil was concerned with his son, but because of his attachment to the name of Narayan, he attained salvation simply by chanting that name. In India, a husband is still called Pati Guru, the husband's spiritual master. If husband and wife are attached to one another for advancement in Krishna consciousness, their relationship of cooperation is very effective for such advancement. Although the names of Indra and Agni are sometimes uttered in the Vedic mantras, Indraya Svaha, Anaya Svaha, the Vedic sacrifices are actually performed for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. As long as one is very much attached to material sense gratification, the worship of the demigods or the worship of one's husbands is recommended. Please join me in prayer for Guru and Parampara. Om Akyanti Mirandasha Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Mano Bistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dharati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapara Kamalam Shri Guru Vaisnavam Cha Shri Rupam Shakrashatam Shakana Rahunantam Vitam Tam Shajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parishana Shahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhuri Nabandhu Shakapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpataru Vishakripa Sindhu Pevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaisavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we have the verse in the chat by Taraka Prabhu. Welcome, dear devotees. So we continue with the pastime of Iti and Kashyapa Muni. And so the verse today are about and continue to be the household dynamics, the householder dynamic between wife and husband, and how being in a woman body can be really, really powerful, because in the sense of the power that a woman can do and can have to conquer, so to say, the whole world, because the woman is the special creation in this material universe, that by the woman beauty, or just even by the woman pleasing words or pleasing behaviors, a man can easily be conquered. And now, with this pastime of Gita and Kashyapa, Kashyapa Muni is a very, very advanced sage in terms of spiritual understanding. At the same time, through this pastime, he is demonstrating how easy it can be to easily fall into the illusion of being the master of the universe, and thinking that when his wife is serving him so nicely with all the behavior, nice pleasing words and everything, he almost for a moment he thought, this is from what I understand from this chapter and through the verses even later on, that almost like there's a moment he thought that I have become the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and now I can give my wife any benediction in the world. And so when his wife asked him a benediction to kill King Indra, he then immediately got his senses together. He was like, oh my God, I have fallen into the illusory sense enjoyment, being the enjoyer of the material objects or the material world, and I have fallen. And he immediately got his senses back together, and he was like, okay, now the only way that I can help my wife is to instruct her to become a Vaisnavi, a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So here Kashyapa Muni is demonstrating how even in any advanced stage of spiritual life, there's always a chance of being victim to the material influence, to the illusory energy, and thinking that I'm the doer, I'm the enjoyer, I'm the controller. And in verse 33 and 34. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada said that a husband is the supreme demigod for a woman. And I was looking into the Sanskrit transliteration word by word. There's a word smrita means it's considered. So in this way, a husband is considered to be the supreme demigod for a woman. And so what is this verse trying to explain here? I feel like there is so much is packed in this purport. I think first of all, the idea is that the supreme is considered a supreme demigod for a woman. And then the next sentence in this verse, text 33, 34, Kashima Muni, I'm sorry, whoever is speaking, I think that was Sukadev Goswami, I believe. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vasudeva, the husband of the goddess Fortune, is situated in everyone's heart and is worshipped through the various names and forms of the demigods by fruitive workers. So just like other fruitive workers who are trying to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead through worshipping the various names and forms of the demigod. So similarly, a woman may worship her husband in a similar way in order to obtain the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here it's not to say that a woman should worship her husband as the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he's not qualified. So here in this verse, clearly explaining that just like other fruitive workers trying to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead through worshiping the demigods without understanding of the forms or the real forms, the real glories or the real person behind the demigods, they trying to worship the demigods without understanding that can help them obtain the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So similarly, a woman may worship their husband in order to obtain the Supreme Lord. And then in the purport, so Srila Prabhupada does explain this point that, like, the demigods are various assistants who acts like the hands and legs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so for fruitive worker who is not in direct contact with the Supreme Lord and cannot conceive of the exalted position of the Lord, is sometimes advised to worship the demigods at various parts of the Lord. So in the purport, it's very clear that Srila Prabhupada is explaining that, yes, to someone who are very much attached to material sense enjoyment, the worship of demigods, of the worship of one husband is recommended. But we as practicing devotees, is recommended to worship the Lord directly through to the guidance of the bona fide guru. So just like Kashyap Muni, he when he for a moment he thought, I can give my wife any benediction because she's so pleasing to me. But then when he got his senses back together, he realized that only when my wife become a Vaisnavi, a Krishna conscious devotee, can she be purified of her own desire. And so Kashyap Muni, he could tell his wife, well, you can worship me the way you have been doing, and I can continue to give you a child that can kill King Indra. But no, he instruct his wife to follow the process of devotional service in order for her to be purified. So and so I think reading this verse, devotees without understanding, especially as young devotees, like for example, when I first read it the first time, it's very easy to misunderstand the context of it and thinking, oh, I have to worship my husband. And then I will go on to explain what worship means in a little bit. But for now, I want to share a few verses where Srila Prabhupada does explain explicitly that one can worship a husband or follow her husband if her husband is qualified, has the spiritual qualification to help the wife or the woman to advance in devotional service. So I'm reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, chapter 6, verse 55. And this is the translation. Women are not considered very powerful in following spiritual principles. But if a woman is fortunate enough to get a suitable husband who is spiritually advanced, and if she always engages in his service, she also gets the same benefits as her husband. Here it clearly said that the wife of Shobari Muni also entered the spiritual world by the influence of their husband. They were unfit, but because they were faithful followers of their husband, they also entered the spiritual world with him. Thus, a woman should be a faithful servant of her husband. If the husband is spiritually advanced, the woman will automatically get opportunity to enter the spiritual world. So, yeah, it is clearly recommended that a woman can follow her husband if her husband is spiritually advanced, and the woman can also get the benefit from serving her husband. At the same time, yeah, so there's the context of when things were spoken, the culture at the time, and the culture where we are at the moment. And so in Vedic culture, many or in previous yuga, the men have much more qualification and strength to advance in spiritual knowledge, and the woman I think it's valid to say that the woman at the time may not have similar qualifications as the men to make advancement in spiritual knowledge. And so when a woman follow her husband who is spiritually advanced, she got benefit, which is why in this verse it's explained that the woman may not be unfit for spiritual advancement. And if when that is the case, following a spiritually advanced husband would be very beneficial. Nowadays, in this age of Kali Yuga, full of ignorance and passion, everyone is practically in ignorance, men and women all alike. And so in the purport of the verse today, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that, mentioned that if husband and wife are attached to one another for advancement in Krishna consciousness, their relationship of cooperation is very effective for such advancement. So here's clearly Srila Prabhupada explained that now in this Asian age, when husband and wife are attached to one another, but for the advancement of Krishna consciousness, their relationship of cooperation is very effective for such advancement. So here, Srila Prabhupada emphasized the cooperation of relationship between a wife and husband, and not one dominate the other, or one become the master and one become the servant. This is the relationship of cooperation. And so similarly, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that in India today, a husband is still called Pati Guru, the husband's spiritual master. Now, I think, I should not use I think. I hope that this is bona fide, but one should not falsely think that because one is his husband, he's automatically a spiritual master. Just like a Brahmana is recognized by the qualities of the Brahmana, and a Brahmana is recognized by the quality of Brahmana and not by birth or artificial imposition. So similarly, a husband is recognized as Pati Guru when he is qualified as such. And I think men can falsely think that, oh, I'm a husband, so I am the spiritual master. I have the right to instruct my wife what to do. But a woman should be very intelligent in terms of recognizing whether her husband is qualified to be the spiritual master and to follow or not. And so yeah, so I will go on and please give me a moment. Yeah, I will go on and read another verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Srila Prabhupada emphasized this point again of, yes, how as women, we need to be really, we need to use our intelligence to discern, to choose who should be our husband, our partner in life, and also whether we should follow the husband in terms of spiritual practices. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 11, verse 28. And this is the verse translation. A chaste woman should not be greedy, but satisfied in all circumstances. She must be very expert in handling household affairs and should be fully conversant with religious principles. She should speak pleasingly and truthfully and should be very careful and always clean and pure. This almost appears like the instruction Kashara Muni were instructing his wife. Thus, a chaste woman should engage with affection in the service of a husband who is not fallen. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained, anyone who is a devotee is sinless. One who is not a devotee, however, is the most fallen and condemned. It is recommended, therefore, that a chaste wife not associate with a fallen husband. A fallen husband is one who is addicted to the four principles of sinful activities, namely illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. Specifically, if one is not a soul surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is understood to be contaminated. Thus, a chaste woman is advised not to agree to serve such a husband. It is not that a chaste woman should be like a slave, while her husband is the Naradam, the lowest of men. Although the duties of a woman are different from those of a man, a chaste woman is not meant to serve a fallen husband. The conclusion is that a husband should be a pure Vaisnava and that a woman should be a chaste wife with all the symptoms described in this regard. Then both of them will be happy and make spiritual progress in Krishna consciousness. And now with this verse, of course, many of us are not on that platform of pure Vaisnava. So again, could Srila Prabhupada advise cooperation between husband and wife will be very effective for advancement in Krishna consciousness. Now I want to go on to kind of unpack a little bit more why, if one is very much attached to material sense gratification, and the worship of the demigods or the worship of one husband is recommended. So my point earlier was that as devotees, we already have the knowledge of the absolute truth, and so we, both as husband and wife, we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly through the process of devotional service with the guidance of the spiritual master. But here it explained that as long as one is very much attached to material sense enjoyment, then the worship of demigods or worship of one husband is recommended. For the demigods, I think it's clear that even in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that if one don't have direct contact with devotional service, then even the path of impersonalism is recommended. So they can gradually become more and more pious, gain some more pious credits. So eventually, at one point, they will be blessed by coming in contact with a spiritual master or with the process of devotional service. And now with the worship of the husband, so I was thinking about the term worship, and we're trying to kind of meditate on what worship means. And so, devotee, if you think of the word worship, what comes to your mind? And I don't know. Yeah, what comes to your mind when you think of the word worship? You can type in the chat, you can unmute, share. And if the devotee is thinking, I may throw something out there. So we know the process of deity worship. So there is an aspect of, a ritualistic, regulated time. Yes, okay. And yes, Prabhu, to honor someone with words or praise. So that worship. Anyone else, if you have any thoughts, please throw in the chat. So there's a sense of reverence or adoration. There's some aspect of ritualistic there. There may be some sense of obligation. And this to reverence someone and hold them in high esteem. So there's a sense of reverence, adoration. Yeah. So I'm going to move on just for the sake of time. And this is something that I'm still trying to understand. And what I'm going to share are what I heard from Chi Shakti Devi. And I found that very, very interesting. And I feel like I'm sharing this right now for my benefits, first of all, because my ears are closest to my mouth. So when I speak, hopefully I can also hear and realize some more. So Chi Shakti, she made the point that worship is when we put something or someone before anything else or anyone else. We're willing to put them as a priority beyond ourselves. and in fact, we as human being, we worship something all the time if it's not Krishna, if it's not God. And and worship is very natural for us. So people may worship a car, for example, put everything else, put the car beyond everything else. Oh my God, if my car get dirty, I'm gonna have to go clean it. Or worship some famous idols. So Shakti, she explained that worship is actually very natural for us. Prioritizing someone above ourselves is natural for us because that is our natural propensity when we in our natural spiritual identity. And so there's an aspect of ritualistic in worship because there's an aspect of routine, doing something in a regulated time. Like with deity worship, we cook for the deity, we change them, we dress them, we offer food for them, we entertain them, we sing for them, we chant for them. And Sri Shakti Prabhu, she made the example of a parent. So when we are a parent, we also cook, we also change, we dress our children, and it may appear kind of ritualistic for parent in a sense because it's repeatedly doing every day the same thing, but the thing with parents is that when they serve their children that way, when they cook for them, they care for them, they feed them, they dress them, what happens is that their affection for the child increase. It doesn't make the parent dislike the child, even with the sleepless night, diaper change, feeding on demand. The parents putting everything else to the side, including their own personal desire for the welfare of the child. But it doesn't make them dislike the child. It makes them love the child even more. And I have this practical experience. I don't have children, but I have this practical experience when I work for the daycare. And I should so look forward to come in and spend time with them. I enjoy changing for them or caring for them, feeding them. There's just such an intimate, just a natural propensity, especially for women, I think. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada has given it a process of deity worship. So worship here is actually love and devotion. So Srila Prabhupada give us the process of deity worship. We feed, we chant, we dress the deity, we decorate them, and we sing for them, we chant for them, we put them to bed. So all of that, the purpose behind that worship is to increase our love for Krishna, just like the parent by doing service for their child, their love increases. Similarly, when we do service for the deity, that is the process that how by worshiping the deity, our love for Krishna will also increase that way. And so again, this is our very natural propensity. We have a natural propensity to put someone else and something else in the center. That is our natural propensity as a spiritual being. But now we just kind of get it diverted a little bit. So worship here again is not anything ritualistic, because behind the ritualistic activity, the mood of that is to increase the love, is the love and devotion. So here, Srila Prabhupada explained that, yeah, if one is very much attached to material sense gratification, one can worship their husband. And another reason why one should worship their husband, I think there's also in Bhagavad Gita 140, there's an explanation that when women stay chaste and faithful to their husband, that increase the peace and prosperity and spiritual progress of the society. So I go on and read that verse. So this is Bhagavad Gita 140. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained, good population in human society is basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress in life. The Varna ashram religion principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in society for the general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. And on the failure of such varnashram dharma, naturally the woman become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulged and thus adultery is indulged in at the risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. So again, women's chastity and faithfulness are very powerful for the prosperity, for the spiritual progress, for the peace of the society. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 10, Text 27, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that by staying chaste and faithful to a husband, a woman enriches herself with supernatural power. So from these points, that's where I think that even when one is attached to material sense enjoyment and doesn't have knowledge of devotional service, if one stays chaste and faithful to their husband, then there is still progress that being made for the household and also for the society at large. Now, in the society now today, because of the degraded what is the word? Because of the degradation in society now today, we see a lot of first divorces especially in the US. I have some clients who has married twice, and their kids has gone through at least 3 fathers in their life, and just seeing so much trauma for the kids, just going through many marriage with the new mother and the new father, or whatever that is, and that create, and no wonder why people will become more and more suffering and also stray from spiritual progress. So if a man is abusive or violent, or really ignorant, in the darkest region, ignorant, abusive, and doesn't have any good quality, then it's not recommended that the woman should remain faithful to him. And yeah, people nowadays, it's very sad that they don't even, and I'm saying people nowadays, but at the same time, that we're talking about the people who are going to enter our ISKCON society in the future. These are the kind of people who are going to enter our society of ISKCON, and they're gonna carry their setback, their samskara, their whatever trauma, whatever conditioning that they have, they're gonna carry into our society, and it's sad that people nowadays, they don't even want to do the hard work to work through the relationship between a husband and wife. And so when one sense gratification is not met, then they easily try to find a quick fix and try to find the way out by getting divorced, getting a new husband. And so that's, even in our society, we also want to be careful, like when our relationship don't work, if there is no like abusive situation, then are we willing to do the work to make our relationship work between husband and wife, because the happiness of the household is obviously going to be the happiness of the society at large. And so it's very important that somehow the husband and wife try to cooperate, work it out, and not kind of being like one the dominant and one the servant, but having the relationship of cooperation and in service for Krishna, and also in service for one another. And that's going to be the core of peace and prosperity for society, our society of ISKCON, and also society at large. I think that's all I have for today. Oh, I have one more verse that I found very, very sweet and beautiful. So I guess I end with this. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, Text 66. As chaste women bring their gentle husband under control by service, the pure devotees who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me in the core of the heart bring me under their full control. So here, the mood of worship, just like Krishna is willing to be under the control of the pure devotee because of the pure devotee love for him. So similarly, there's the comparisons that like the husband will be easily kind of put under control because of the love and service of the chaste woman. And but this under control is under love and service. But in this case of Kashira Muni and Diti, obviously Diti has an adulterate motive in her mind, which is why she was serving her husband very nicely, but her husband still fall into that. But when a woman serve her husband with love and with devotion, then the husband is going to be naturally very happy, and the household can be happy. So I think that's all I have for today. Is there any questions, thoughts, response, reflections?
Hare Krishna, good morning, Parameshwari, Devi Dasi. It's so nice to be here with you, giving class. And what a beautiful job that you did of just bringing us around to what worship truly is, and what marriage truly is and should be about. And I have a question, because I know in other religious paths, there are checks and balances around marriage. So in Islam, before you marry someone, you are supposed to read the Quran with them twice in the presence of an imam and married couples from both sides. So a married couple from the potential bride and a married couple from the potential groom who are successful in their marriage, who are serving God and who are pretty much happy about the whole thing. In Christianity, is a very similar path and process if you're actually practicing Christianity. So you go through what is called pre-Cana counseling, and you go through catechism, and it's a very similar thing. What is there in the Society of ISKCON to be proactive about marriage, about knowing that you are in the right frame of mind, in the right spirit to ask someone to marry you, to be a wife, to be a husband? What happens? What's the process? I'm really interested to know what is there to support that, and then to support it afterwards. So again, even in Orthodox Jewish community, once you marry, for the whole first year on the Sabbath, you go to the homes of other married couples, and the wife separates from the husband and she's talking with the wives, the husband is talking with the men, and whatever problems are there are getting ironed out, because it's sort of like a fail safe, like let's make sure, let's support them as a community. So what happens in Krishna consciousness, and particularly in ISKCON, so that these things are avoided and the correct way, the correct spirit of being in a marriage is supported and encouraged?
Yeah, thank you for for bringing up that point. Yeah, I think all other religious communities in the world, a lot of them, like the one that you mentioned, are very, very much well established in the world. They've been existing for many, many, many years. But ISKCON, we really new. I think we 50 years in a row, and it's a sad reality that I think we have started somewhere by the Grithasta Vision team, right? Like there's a team who is there to guide couple, but from my personal experience, I feel like um, it's it's very much a responsibility of the couple that they need to seek those guidance. They need to kind of go out and seek those guidance versus in previous in other religious communities in the world, it's almost like it's already established for them and they should naturally kind of flow into it. I feel like in ISKCON, I think there's a blessing of staying in Gitanagari community because Gitanagari has a lot of, well-established couples householder that they can guide us on the path, but it's still the responsibility of the couple in ISKCON. It seems to actively seek out those guys and those guidance. I don't know in other parts of ISKCON. There may be some communities that are a little bit more well established, and so if devotee come to certain communities and there's already an established kind of guidance for the husband and wife or premarital counseling, then I think that's there. But I feel like in ISKCON that may be rare. And yeah, and when there is guidance from more senior devotees, senior Grithasta couple, they usually recommend, or at least our Guru Maharaj usually recommend that we're not getting married in the first 2 years. Like we need to spend some time and get to know one another and serve together and learn each other temperaments and things before getting married. So there's some guidelines there. Like yeah, like I think Nagarnita and I we went to premarital counseling because Mother Chintamani suggested for us, but if she didn't mention it, we wouldn't know it. It's such a thing is there. So I think there's still some guidance through very experienced Grithasa seniors, but again, the couple themselves have to reach out to those Grithasa couple to seek out for guidance, and I think that is important. Yeah, do you have any other thoughts? You have any reflection on that, Madhulila Kishori?
No, just thank you for answering. I really was just interested because when you mentioned it, I just thought, wow, I wonder what is in place then, especially when you said there are people who are coming with all of their damage and some scars. And so then, and potentially could be young and at some point want to marry. And that's a good thing. But, how do we support and ensure that it is in fact a good thing? And try to give the guidance. Is there a formal way that this happens? So that was all that I just wanted to know, that if that existed. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Thank you. And yes, there is premarital counseling done by Grithasa devotees, and the Grithasa Vision team also does a lot of workshop, throughout the different temples and different communities to educate about being in Grithasa life and many things like that. So yeah, like if you need specific resources in terms of like premarital counseling, there is premarital counseling that is there. And I will address Madhupan Lila question in the chat, and I will go to Taraka Prabhu. Thank you for the night class. Is it possible for those who are in the same-sex marriages able to get all the benedictions of serving the husband? Thank you. Yeah, that is a very interesting question. I think, like I mentioned earlier, in Vedic culture, in previous yuga, the emphasis of serving the husband and getting the benediction of serving the husband is there because the men is obviously have more facilities and also probably qualification to advance in spiritual life much more than women did. But nowadays, nowadays, husband and wife, if they are usually on the same, spiritual level of advancement, then each other serving each other will be the path to go. So I think nowadays, similarly in same-sex marriages, just the ability to serve one another. But even when same-sex marriages between one who is a devotee and one who is not, obviously the one who is not practicing Krishna consciousness but getting married to a devotee, if they also serve their partner, obviously they will get benefit because Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, and he see the sincere service, the sincere love and affection for his devotee, and so surely they will get advancement that way. So yeah, I think it's more kind of fluid nowadays. Do you have any other thoughts, Madhupan Lila, or is that okay?
No, that's great. Thank you. I was thinking about it while you were speaking. That's a nice way of phrasing it.
Thank you. Taraka Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a very nice class. I appreciate your treatment of this delicate topic. With regards to Mother Lila Kishori's question, ISKCON wide from the topmost managerial position in ISKCON, we have not mandated any particular practices for new householders. other than the basics established by Srila Prabhupada. Individual gurus, however, have established various processes for their disciples. They may insist that newly married couples take guidance from a particular couple, which he may name. So from the guru level, there are sometimes standardized practices for the couples, but we have not implemented that from the ISKCON wide level. There are different ministries and individuals that are endeavoring to help householders, and as Parameshwari Prabhu explained, it is largely the responsibility of a couple to seek out help, but it is sometimes specifically instructed by gurus. With regards to Mother Manupana Leela's question about same-sex couples, this is obviously a delicate subject matter. We don't have a lot of time. It's also a large subject matter, but it is briefly an unfortunate situation because well, first I should probably say that the issue of same-sex marriages is not really addressed in Shastra. It's just not. There is no scope for same-sex marriage. This is something that is new to Vaishnavism, at least. That there have been individuals with such an inclination is certainly not new, but it is a new thing for Vaishnavism to contend with. One of the first problems is that household life is built in part upon the yajna, the sacrifice of raising children in Krishna consciousness. Every individual, particularly a householder, is required to perform various sacrifices. There is pancha yajna, because in the course of doing anything in life, there is all kinds of karma incurred, and that increases when one adopts household life. There is a need to atone for the various types of sins that are incurred, usually inadvertently. So there is a process. There are ritualistic performances prescribed to atone for this, but for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, it is primarily Sankirtan yajna. Just the performance of Sankirtan is our primary and overarching system of atonement for whatever inadvertently incurred karma there may be. For householders, there is what may sometimes be described as unavoidable sense gratification. But sense gratification always means suffering. For householders, their atonement for the types of inadvertent sins that may be incurred, and to atone for the reactions of the sense gratification that come unavoidably, The process is that they beget children as a service, not as an act of sense gratification, but in service to Krishna. They will beget a child in Krishna consciousness and accept the responsibility, the solemn duty of raising that child in Krishna consciousness, which is very difficult. It's a great deal of work. It's an immense responsibility. It requires a tremendous sacrifice of time and energy. By doing that, one is absolved of all kinds of unavoidable sins. For for same-sex marriages, the opportunity for that type of atonement does not exist. Um, One could argue that, they could adopt and still perform a similar sort of sacrifice, and that's true. Um, um, the initial act of begetting the child is not there. Um, on the whole, it becomes more difficult from a position of same-sex marriage. Um, if that same-sex it it's just a very difficult thing. Um, there is some uh, um, the unavoidable sense gratification associated with the begetting of a child is sanctioned in our traditional marriage, um, when it's performed according to religious principles. Um, Same-sex marriages, whatever may be done, none of it is according to religious principles um, because those religious principles don't exist. Um, those couples simply have to try to do everything as far as possible in Krishna consciousness. As far as the benefit that one may derive from serving one's spouse, and I say spouse because in a same-sex marriage you don't have a husband necessarily. One may be regarded as husband, and in that case, if one adopts a role like that of a husband, um, um, uh, assuming a predominant role, um, or a role of leadership, and has greater spiritual advancement, the partner may be able to share in the advancement of the more advanced individual, and that's true of any devotee, married or not. You associate with and serve devotees who are more advanced, and you share in their advancement. Um, to some extent or other. Um, um, but it is particularly true for husband and wife. It's a religious principle. It's part of the process that for part of the means for a woman to advance in Krishna consciousness is through assisting her husband in his service. She shares in his service. The husband, um, for his part, he has to accept the um, 50 at least 50% of the um, reactions for the wife's misdeeds. So for the husband, the wife, while she can be an asset on when everything is conducted within the parameters of Krishna consciousness, the wife can also be a liability, and that's true of the children also. The husband is always responsible for his family members, and he has to accept the consequences for their actions. Um, Same-sex marriages, there's some confusion because it's not addressed by our charges or Shastra, generally speaking. These things, as I say, it was not unheard of. Such things went on in Vedic times, but not necessarily with the sanction of any particular charya or shastra. Um, I can't speak for all instances. I have no idea what went on in the distant past, um, but in ISKCON we have grappled with this for some time because it's a new thing that we're having to address, and there's just not, as I say, there's not much guidance given by Shastra. Um, I would say that same-sex marriages are generally disadvantaged. It's a difficult thing. It's a very difficult thing. Many of the benefits and advantages of a a traditional marriage are not available in a same-sex marriage. But there's always the opportunity to try to cooperate in Krishna consciousness. Um, there are sometimes devotees, um, a pair of brahmacharis, a pair of young ladies who become friends in the ashram. They serve together, they render service together, they become very close, very intimately connected. They develop great affection for one another. Not necessarily a sexual attraction. There may be no scope for any sort of sexual relationship between themselves, but they have a very close, a very deep friendship, and they render some service to one another by lending support. They associate intimately with one another, um, revealing their mind to one another, and they render service together. And they in I can speak of instances in which I have seen such relationships. They tend to do very, very well. They support one another, and do tremendous service together. The combination is powerfully positive. Same-sex marriages can be like that, and they should be like that. Um, where the greatest problems arise is when a same-sex marriage is established not for the purpose of facilitating service necessarily, but for the sake of facilitating sense gratification. In that case, all kinds of problems arise, and there are not, as I say, the the means for atoning is not automatically built in. One has to um, uh, separately endeavor for that kind of purification. So there are disadvantages, but it can work um, um, when it is um, for want of a better word, a platonic but intimate friendship in which two individuals are committed to assisting one another in devotional service. Um, that can work very well, but just as it works for single devotees um, who develop such relationships organically. Um, um, but but if it becomes uh, um, a facility for sense gratification, either by design, either from its inception, or it evolves into such a thing, it becomes very problematic. Um, and in those instances, it may not work well. Such marriages either fail, or the individuals descend into terrible maya, and nothing productive comes of it. So um, it's a difficult thing, but for that matter, traditional marriages are also difficult, and they also frequently fail. Unfortunately, the statistics are rather poor. Um, Couples in general are just not doing well, whether traditional relationships or same-sex relationships. It's a bad time in the world when um, perpetuating relationships is a great challenge. They tend to fail, people drift apart. They don't have the same strength of character, they don't commit themselves in the same way. One places oneself and their sense gratification above a relationship, and things don't work out in the long haul. In traditional marriages, it becomes particularly problematic because children suffer terribly, and the same ill patterns repeat themselves through generations. Um, it's a bad time. Um, So, one of the institutions that we have in ISKCON that benefits all relationships, um, and which is extremely important, and which is an advantage that we have, I would say, over other religious systems, is that we have um, daily classes in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, where we address all of these kinds of things. Srimad Bhagavatam, pretty much everything that anyone ever needs to know can be learned from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's incredibly instructive. It addresses pretty much everything, either directly or indirectly. It is, the literal incarnation of Krishna himself. So everything is there. Um, um, and knowledge is acquired in extraordinary ways, both directly and indirectly, both from without by hearing the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, and also from within by process of revelation. Um, that's something that every devotee should take shelter of, and that's something that is specifically mandated. It's That's part of our official process. Every devotee is required to hear at least 3-month Bhagavatam class every day. Srila Prabhupada's standard was classes twice a day. Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning, Bhagavad Gita class in the evening. That was his minimum standard. In addition to that, independent reading for a minimum of 1 or 2 hours daily. That Those practices fortify one tremendously, and afford us, I would say, a much greater advantage than any amount of the practices of other religious systems. Uh, Anyway, we've gone way over time, so I'll stop there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Babu. Thank you for sharing with us your wisdom. Yeah, is there any final words or thoughts before we close for today?
Jasenia has a question in the
That's
chat.
right. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. Could you share more about what chase means in this context? That's a good question. I think other devotees, especially the ladies, yeah, can share. I think, I mean, I need to do more research on this. For me, I think chase means being faithful, you know. Yeah, being faithful to the husband and the family, and not trying to attract attention of other men, or trying to look for other men to meet our needs, but stay faithful to the husband, and served. Yeah, but yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for asking. I'm not so sure. I mean, other devotees, please share. If we have Mother Yasoda here, we have Kumari Gopi, Madalila Kishore, especially the ladies. What does chase mean? I mean, especially, yeah, in this context, but I think in general too. Yes, Taraka Babu. I think you probably have a lot of insight on this too.
Yeah, I'm not a lady. You might have noticed, but
I'm sure you have a
but
lot of insight on this.
chastity applies actually to everyone, regardless of gender. One should be chaste to guru, um, and also within a marital relationship, chastity is important. Chastity is important for brahmacharis. The beginning of life, one is supposed to be trained in brahmacharya, but and there are 8 aspects to brahmacharya, so it involves both gross and subtle aspects. Women do not necessarily get the same kind of training as a brahmachari, but the woman, of course, is expected to be chaste to her husband. It means, first of all, obviously on the gross level, that she does not engage in any kind of sexual relationship with anyone but her husband. But there are also subtle aspects to sex life um, that involve. For example, just thinking about someone else. A woman thinks only of her husband. She doesn't contemplate of other men. Um, these days, customarily, people are always contemplating other individuals. They look at other individuals with sense gratification in mind. They see another person, they immediately size that individual up as a potential sexual partner. These are extreme forms of being unchaste. A woman is expected um, to think only of her husband, and if she has actually no relationship with any other male um, of, of that sort. There are other types of relationships. A woman has a relationship with her spiritual master. She has a relationship with her male offspring. She has a relationship with her father, but it is of a different nature. The type of relationship that a woman has with her husband can never be had with anyone else. That is reserved exclusively for her husband. I think that's all I have to say. I don't want to take a lot of time now.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Thank you so much for your insight. Yeah, now that you mentioned, yeah, that make me think a little bit more, and I think, yeah, there's a subtle and gross sense of enjoyment with people from another sex, right? Especially for women. I think we got to be really careful in terms of our relationship, like Tarka mentioned, our relationship with other male body, because there's, in the gross sense, like obviously chase means not having sexual intercourse with another man. That is obvious on a gross sense. But then there's, on a subtle sense, like there could be a subtle desire to be close friend with another male and reveal your heart and mind with another male, and that is quite dangerous, because when we do that with another male, there's a certain subtle affection there that is shared, and that is quite dangerous for both the man and the woman who engage in that kind of intimate association. So I think, for me at least, Shay is also not to indulge in very closely relationship with other male body beside husband or beside your partner, because there's always a subtle like when we like talk to another man, and oh my god, he listened to me and he hear me out so nicely. Oh my god, I don't like my husband anymore because he never does that to me. So like there's that kind of very dangerous subtle way of destroying the affection that you may have for the husband. And if there's anything that, or the partner or the husband, if there's anything that your needs are not met in a relationship, then there needs to be a communication between the wife and the husband, or the girlfriend and the boyfriend, in order to make that needs met. Otherwise, usually the tendency is to go out of the romantic relationship and seeking that need to be met somewhere else. And it gets extremely dangerous when seek our needs met by another male beside our husband. That is going to be extremely dangerous. So yeah, I hope that helps some. Thank you, Taraka, for sharing your insight. It was really helpful. Any final thoughts? Is that okay, Jacinia? Or okay? Do you have any other thoughts or questions? Kumari Gopi, could you please share more about Tulasi Devi?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, everybody. A wonderful conversation and learning. I didn't want to say much, just that Tulsi Devi is very powerful, and she's a great example of chastity and following up, from the esoteric pastime, how she came and her presence in this world. She's the most pure. So even for demons and so many personalities, the ones that are successful are usually the ones that worship her. And so I feel like anyone struggling in any aspect of their life, whether it's relationship, marital, anything, by worshiping Tulsi Devi, so many good qualities come, and we actually get the empowerment for that purity to be chaste in all aspects. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Taraka Prabhu, I saw your hands earlier. Do you want to say something else? Maybe we can try to end at 8:30.
Yeah, I just real quickly, Srila Prabhupada's general instruction for men and women was that they should not speak to one another unnecessarily. Sometimes in devotional service, there's a necessity for a man and a woman who are not married to interact. But if there is not a specific necessity for that in devotional service, Srila Prabhupada's instruction was that the men and women should not speak to one another.
Thank you for your share. I think at least, I mean, we can still like greet and have some check-in, but like I agree that like not unnecessary indulgent in conversation, especially with intimate topic. Even for the men, it's easy for the men to get sidetracked if he's a married man as well. Yeah, so yeah, we all need to be chaste, not just women, but also men. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Beauty Bhaktis, for such a wonderful Sangha. I think I'm gonna take my leave. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, dear devotees. I hope you have a wonderful Krishna conscious day.